Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here with a special guest.
Hi guys, it's Lea C here.
All right, and we are going to be here all week to talk about the new Steven Universe episodes coming out, the Heart of the Crystal Gems arc. We're going to be doing videos every day after the episodes air, and we're going to alternate. So this one's on my channel. The next one will be on her channel. There'll be a link down in the description. We'll remind you on Wednesday when we're back on my channel to check that one out too. But just so you know, go and subscribe to her channel if you haven't already to get the full picture here.
Oh yeah, super hyped for it all.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess just as a forward for like this whole thing is that very recently I made a video and I've kind of been thinking back a lot on not the very beginning of season 5, but like the thing that happened right after the beginning of season 5, the Steven and Connie drama. And after seeing previews for this and rewatching that, my expectations, I mean, like my expectation for that last episode, whatever's going to happen, and oh, I guess just as a preface, spoilers insofar as the episode that we're going to be talking about, but not spoil and the previews, like the Cartoon Network official trailers, not spoilers insofar as whatever big spoiler leaked about the very last episode.
Yeah,
Right.
the podcast leaks, we're not going to be talking about those.
So yeah, if you're caught up and you don't mind like just the trailer, then you're fine. Which I'm sure you saw if you were watching it live anyway, because they put it right after anyway. But
Oh yeah.
but yeah, no, I was hyped for the last part of this bomb because like something is definitely going to happen. But insofar as like the Ruby and Sapphire splitting up, I had pretty low expectations for it. How about you?
Honestly, like I was expecting this to be like I was expecting Sapphire to be upset more than just one episode. So I'm kind of surprised that after this one she's like, "Oh no, I messed up by being mad at Ruby, who isn't someone I should be mad at."
Mm,
I just think it was interesting that they went with it that way cuz I mean, realistically, Sapphire shouldn't be upset with Ruby. Like she has every right to be upset at the situation and everything, but being upset and outbursting at Ruby probably was not the best thing that she could have done. So I'm glad that they didn't like play have it happen more, and I'm glad that they had her realize sooner on in the arc that she shouldn't have had an outburst at her.
right, and it's interesting because this is like the first time we've really seen Sapphire have an outburst. She's been angry before, Keystone Motel, but this is like the first time that she was like emotional, basically.
Well, yeah, and it's definitely interesting to see because, like you said, in Keystone Motel, we do see that when she gets upset, she loses control of her ice powers.
Mhm.
And here it was even more so shown where, like, ice was jutting out, and it was kind of dangerous because when Pearl and Steven were walking up to her, the ice almost hit right into Pearl. So it's like it's interesting to see what happens when she does get that upset. And she was like screaming and everything. So it's just
Yeah.
really neat to see her lose her cool, especially since the only one who we've seen lose their cool so far is Ruby. So it's interesting to see that dynamic switch.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I was just in general opinion, I was blown away by this episode. Honestly.
Oh yeah.
Just and we'll talk about the details, but just the way that Ruby and Sapphire's drama was interconnected with the reveal of Pink Diamond being Rose, and we get so much more about that story. This was the episode I was waiting for before I really want to form an opinion on Rose Quartz. I still think there's other things we need to know, but this answered a lot of kind of questions linger in the air, and we'll talk about that. But just overall, like to put so many different elements in the episode, we get a little bit of Steven's reaction too. It's not taken away from Steven, even though he isn't the focus here. I just think that they melded a lot of really different ideas and a lot of things that we kind of wanted to see into one very cohesive, just solid 11 minutes.
Oh yeah, and like I get showing all of the reactions to it, and we haven't seen those yet. But at the same time, we also needed the context behind what the whole story was in order to actually have their emotions hit harder on us.
Yeah.
Which is why I think it was as well as it was. I think the backstory did need to come before all of the reactions did. So even though we haven't really seen exactly extensively how Steven feels about it, I do think that it was done well because we do need to see that context, and Steven probably wanted the context. So now
Well,
we get to see them react more accurately to it as well.
and I'm kind of sad that this didn't air with a single Pale Rose because, okay, so things that like a lot of people have been upset with Rose Quartz about, like this episode softened them. So the zoo was explicitly made for Pink. It was not Pink Diamond Zoo. Insofar as Rose, the diamonds made it because Rose liked humans, and Rose didn't want it. She explicitly told them to not do it, and they did it. So I think that whole like, oh, Pink Diamond's a monster that's keeping humans in zoos, that's just not true. Um,
Right, and that argument isn't valid any longer because that's the context that we needed, and Pink did
mhm,
not want the zoo.
yep.
So
Another thing is her first transforming into a quartz, not even rose quartz, or because I think she's supposed to be an amethyst. My screen kind of went out a little bit right there, but her first transformation wasn't this like I'm gonna deceive everyone or I'm playing this grand game. It was the queen wants to spend time with the commoners. That's all it was. And I think that's
right.
another thing people attribute it to like malice of like she had this grand evil scheme to manipulate everyone. And at least starting out, it was for fun.
It was, and I think it's interesting too that it also wasn't Rose's idea. It was Pearl's, and Pearl accidentally gave her that idea. Like, oh, by the way, if you were to shapeshift into a quartz, you could look exactly like them. And then she's just like, oh my gosh. And Pearl's like, oh no, I have accidentally facilitated this, which I think was really cute. But it was also really cool to see that it wasn't originally Rose's idea. It was Pearl's, and she accidentally gave it to her.
Mhm. And I don't know, I don't feel like it's a retcon because it's not like it's something that came far, far after. I just feel like this was part 2 of that story that should have aired with it. Like
Oh yeah.
can't go back could have aired at another time. Like it is connected to Single Pale Rose, but like this episode was it was the answer. I mean, it was not the
It
answer,
almost
but
feel it almost feels like this should have been a 22-minute special, the Single
yeah.
Pale Rose and this part. Like it doesn't feel like they should have been two separate episodes just because you needed that automatic reaction afterwards. Like yeah, airing the episodes too, but I feel like it should have been like reunited in that it was 22 minutes long. Just cuz I feel like they go together really well, which I
Yeah.
mean obviously, but I mean I feel like you needed both parts of the story in order to have the full experience.
And that's not necessarily that's not really the Crewniverse's fault. If Cartoon Network aired it the way they did, I guess especially because if the last episode's 22 minutes, maybe there was a miscommunication. They thought it was two 11-minute episodes, and then that could have been the 5 episode bomb in the week. Um,
Oh
but
yeah.
but yeah, I would have much rather had the cliffhanger of like what's going on with Ruby and Sapphire's relationship than a cliffhanger of well, we found this out about Rose, but we're missing a lot of the context. We're missing any of the reactions. This episode does kind of gloss over it a little bit, but we do get Amethyst's reaction. We do get a little bit of Steven's reaction. Steven's reaction still seems to be basically like I don't really know what to make of this. Like he's not angry, he's not upset, and he's not happy. He's just kind of along for the ride. And in a way, it makes sense because he never really knew who his mom was anyway. So this is just another wrinkle in just like I don't know who she is now. I also still don't know who she is.
Seems like he's still a little bit in shock too because he doesn't really quite understand like who the diamonds are. Like he does know who they are, but at the same time I don't think he understands like to the extent the amount of pain that they've put all the other gems through because obviously the gems who have been around the diamonds longer would know more
Mhm.
than he would about how bad they were, which is I think the reason why Sapphire and Ruby had like such a bad reaction to it to the point of splitting up. But I feel like he also his how he feels about the situation is also heavily influenced by how the gems react as well.
Mhm. So to go back to Ruby and Sapphire splitting up, it's funny because in a way it is a little bit like the Connie Steven split up in that they're not actually they're like what they're actually upset over is they're upset at Rose. They're not really upset at each other, but being upset at Rose manifested in being upset at each other. You know, it happens. If you're having a bad day, you might accidentally take it out on someone you really care about. And so, but I think it's done so much better here because it's just kind of like tied in and I don't know where the story is going to go from here with that. There is a clip in one of the promos where Ruby's like Ruby's all on her own. This time I'm by myself or like she says something like that. And so I don't know how it's gonna play out, but I like that if nothing else, like the reason why they're fighting, even if the story isn't about like why they're fighting, it's still about that. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I think you might get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
So uh Pearl is your favorite character on the show, right?
Oh yeah, she's my favorite.
How do you feel about Pearl in this episode and the fact that it's explicitly stated that Pearl was made for Pink Diamond to make her happy?
Um I'm not quite sure. I feel like it wasn't talking about like her actually being made itself. I feel like it was more of a general statement, more like pearls are meant to make diamonds happy sort of thing, because it also was a statement that she was given to her of like a few, I think I forgot what it says. It was like a few thousand years before the rebellion.
Hmm.
Um I'm not quite sure. Like I feel like that's just a general pearl type thing. Like, oh yeah, let's just give a higher up gem a pearl because you know it'll make them feel better, giving them like a servant or type deal.
Hmm.
Um I still do think that pearl didn't belong to just Pink Diamond though. I feel like
She's a
she
hand-me-down.
was yeah, like essentially, especially since they didn't even want to give her Pink her own planet. They just kind of gave it to her after she asked for it. So I feel like it was the same thing with a pearl where they were just kind of like, okay, we'll just give her one of ours cuz we don't want her to keep like going on and on about it, but we also don't want to put the resources aside to make one specifically for her. Because I feel like too, if they were to make a pearl for her, then she'd still have the stomach placement because she's made specifically for her. I just think that she was a hand me down still.
Hmm. Perhaps. I don't know. I guess that line is really whatever you choose to read into it. But I mean, just how'd you feel about Pearl in the episode in general?
Oh, I thought she was amazing, but I'm a little
Hmm.
bit biased because I love Pearl in general. But I do think the part that got me was the very end. I know we'll talk about that later, but that was just the part that really got me about Pearl making Rose fall for her, and she had no idea that she had that type of influence. And I just thought it was really cute because she's clueless a lot when it comes to that type of stuff, and it's good
Yes.
to see that she was clueless all the way through up until now too. So
Yeah, and that's oh god, where Pearl tries to fuse and then they almost do. Like, oh, that's such a classic Steven Universe tease. Like, we've been
it
waiting.
is.
I mean, it's not like it's even necessarily a new fusion, but maybe we could at least hear that fusion talk, like,
Right?
or at least a new a different costume for Rainbow Quartz or something. It's like almost, but I mean, I didn't expect them to fuse right there anyway. It makes sense what happened.
Oh
Super
yeah.
super cute. I think Pearl in this episode, Rose in this episode too. I think if you're someone that really hated Rose after the Pink Diamond reveal, you gotta. I mean, like I'm not saying that this excuses all of her actions or anything like that, but you gotta at least give it that seeing her as Pink Diamond and then seeing her first transformation and stuff like this, it's gotta soften your opinion at least a little bit. Like, she's not some evil maniacal character. She might be selfish and she might be self-absorbed and she might be clueless, but she's so cute. I don't know.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, I like Rose as a character, but I was kind of iffy on how she was as a person. But like
Mhm.
this episode does definitely soften my opinion on her because I was also, and those people that were assuming that she also made the human zoo just because she thought that humans were cute. But it's like it's really good to know. It kind of changes my perception on her that she was actively fighting to
Mhm.
keep the Earth safe. She didn't want them in a zoo, and that it was actually Blue and Yellow Diamond who did it. And I think that that definitely changes my perception on her a lot now that that's happened.
And I think it makes sense too because if going back to the zoo, the reason why Blue is so connected to it probably isn't just because it was Pink Diamond Zoo. It was the zoo that, and I think it's because you see, when she goes to Blue Diamond is when the zoo is referenced. So I would assume it's more of Blue's passion project for Pink. So it would makes total sense why she's so emotional in that place because it's not just a place for Pink Diamond; it's a place that she created for Pink Diamond.
Oh yeah, that definitely puts a lot more of emotional weight onto it. And that's why too it seems like they're more connected to the zoo than Pink ever was, which is kind of sad in that regard because it kind of makes you think of like overbearing parents that think that they know the best for their kid. That's kind of what their relationship reminds me of, to be honest.
Connie's mom. That's why Connie's mom and Yellow Diamond were one and the same in their dream.
That makes a lot of sense. Yep.
And that's, I mean, it's not like a new revelation or anything, but it just this episode really further solidifies that like Pink Diamond is on a lower status than the other diamonds. Blue and Yellow are essentially her parents, and
Basically.
we still no mention of White, so presumably White is also still just above the other two and in just her own whatever. Like, still no mention. Even when it's
The
starting.
angry grandma.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's all but confirmed that White's gonna be the final boss, or just end game. But
Basically, because she hasn't shown up yet.
yep. Well, hey, don't forget about that hand reveal.
Oh yeah, that very good hand. She got her nails done
Yep, yep.
just for
Perfect
that reveal.
perfect for the corrupting. Uh so let's see other things about the episode. I mean this is minor and maybe it was just my feed, but like the snow flickered a little. Did you see that?
I didn't see the snow flickering, but one thing that I did see animation-wise was, to me, the rose bushes looked weird, like towards the end where it was connecting the answer and this episode together,
Mhm.
where they were behind the rose bush. The roses looked really out of place, but that was just like a slight nitpick on my end, but the snow
Mhm.
didn't flicker for me.
Right. Um yeah, it might have just been the frequency of my TV. I don't want to attribute that to anything, but I did notice it. And then I guess just like one of the other big like reveals about this is just that the answer takes place literally at the start of the rebellion.
Oh yeah.
We didn't. I mean, it's like assumes it was at the start because we only see Pearl and Rose, like we're But it could have just been they were on some sort of special mission. But now we get the context that they weren't even. It wasn't even a rebellion. It was just Rose was upset with what was happening and just was doing some desperate attempt to just scare the diamonds off.
Yeah, and it ended up not working until she faked her shattering.
But it's great because it's like, yeah, you know what? In a lot of ways, Garnet is the leader of the Crystal Gems. Garnet is the reason why why everything happened, basically.
Essentially, yeah, and it's really interesting too because we've only ever seen Garnet as the leader, and now it's only confirmed that basically Garnet existing is what rekindled the whole reason behind the rebellion, which is interesting.
And I think that's beautiful because another problem that people had with Pearl being Pearl with Rose being Pink Diamond. I guess Pearl was also Rose and Pink Diamond there, but no,
Good point.
no, but like another problem people had was just that like, okay, well, it's just another game with the diamonds. It's like it's not that any old gemstone could be special. It was that a special gemstone pretended to be not special. But to get the context now that ultimately Garnet, who is, I mean, Sapphire is kind of like royalty or whatever, but she's not. She's not high status, and Ruby certainly is not high status. To for those two to really be the impetus behind the rebellion, I think that's huge. I think that's another thing that really softens Rose Quartz and makes the reveal better. I think like this was
Oh yeah.
I was totally waiting for an episode like this, and I don't know if it would come or not, to be honest with you. But I mean, this makes me love a single pale rose even more.
Oh yeah, I think especially with the context, because originally I was kind of like, I liked the reveal, don't get me wrong, but originally I was kind of worried by like, oh yeah, they're playing on the trope that somebody in higher up wanted to make change. But I think that considering now it's kind of confirmed at this point that lower end gems were actually the ones who made the change in one way or another, and we found out that they did actually have a say in what the rebellion was just by merely existing and showing that, hey, fusion doesn't need to be strictly between two of the same gem, like it could be different. And I think that it's really interesting in that we don't have just, oh yeah, Rose just didn't like how things were going on. She was an upper class gem and she rebelled. And I do think that this definitely made it a whole lot better.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like per big fish small pond, right? Where like Rose was among the elites. She was a diamond, but she was the runt of the diamonds. Just because she was quote unquote above all the rest of the gems, she was still looked down upon. She was still someone that didn't have status in her own circle, or diamond, if you will. But
Yeah, that was really good too. Especially since we've kind of seen that, especially she's not taken seriously. We can kind of definitely tell from these episodes that Blue and Yellow aren't really interested in hearing what she has to say, and they don't really care about what her opinion is because they're under the impression that, oh, we're higher status, we know better, we don't really care what you have to say.
yeah.
So I think that definitely pushed the point across that even though she's a diamond, she was not seen as an equal to them at all.
hmm Um. Yeah. Do you have any other big points?
Not really. There was more of like a nitpick on my end that the Pearl Seal thing I think was underplayed a little bit, but I mean, I guess they needed to get a lot done in the episode, so I don't really blame them on that front. It was more like, oh yeah, now that I told Steven about it, the seal doesn't work anymore, but the like my whole issue with that is that Steven didn't exist, so like is it just like under the rules that if she somehow told one person that wasn't Rose the truth that it came undone, or like I don't necessarily understand what the rules to that whole thing was. That's like my
Yeah.
only problem with the episode.
And you're of course talking about just that when Rose told Pearl to not talk about this ever again, it seemed to be some sort of like royal commandment. It wasn't just like, "Hey Pearl, can you just not mention this again?" And the fact that we see Pearl cover her mouth later implies that there is some sort of like magical um solidity to this um
Exactly.
rule. And you're right, they don't talk about it at all here. It's just kind of like, well, I told one person, I guess I can tell everyone.
Yeah, and that's like my problem with it, because it's like what rules does it actually play by, because they don't actually like state it.
Yeah, I mean, we know Steven Universe isn't always the best about like it likes to come up with powers and then not really explain or expand upon them.
This is true.
Um, can Steven do that to someone? Like,
I
I
know
don't,
that's what
uh, I don't know.
maybe he could.
Like, Amethyst walks in on him like picking his nose or something. And he rushes and puts his hands over her mouth. You will never speak about this to anyone.
Oh my gosh, can you
uh,
imagine that? That'd be hilarious. It'd be sad too, though. Can't
um,
speak of the Stephen Booger incident again.
I mean, it's not. It's not even. I don't think it's even 100% confirmed that it is a magical thing, as much as it is really implied to be. It could just be that Pearl took being Rose's guardian so seriously, and then years passed, and it's like after she repressed it. It wasn't even. It wasn't like, I don't know. I guess just like because it got brought up again, she can talk about it now. I don't know. I don't know whether it's kind of implied to be magical, but I don't know if that's what they were going for. But I think the general gist is that this was this big traumatic thing, and now that Steven knows, it doesn't really matter. Or I guess it doesn't matter that she's keeping it or anything. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's either way, because they weren't really clear on it. I mean, I would hope that it was a magical type thing, because otherwise, like, that makes Pearl like not such a great person if she was sitting on that the entire time. Just being honest here.
I mean, when was she gonna bring it up? Like, really? I mean,
I mean,
but
after Steven sacrificed himself, I would hope.
yeah, that could be relevant information. And
Yeah. They're
uh,
like, hey, please don't sacrifice yourself again, because you're not actually responsible for this. Thank you.
yeah, or like, I don't know. I guess like just on a very base sense, like if somehow the Diamonds were to have found out that Steven was Pink Diamond, like that puts them all in just even more danger than they ever were. Like it's just so much more of a target on everyone's back. Um, but no, I mean, the seal thing, I do think it is something that would have been nice to be expanded upon, but there's so much they have to cover. Like they're trying to set something new up going forward. They're trying to show the characters' reactions. They're trying to fill us in on the backstory, that one particular detail. And honestly, if they didn't fill it in here, I really don't think they ever will. I'm okay
Oh
with
yeah,
leaving that on the
I don't think that
sidelines.
they will. Yeah, I'm fine with it too, because I do get that they needed to cover a lot, especially just in this episode in general. So like I'm fine on them not expanding on it, but I do feel like they're just gonna also leave it, because there's really no point on elaborating it unless there's another story point that comes up with either blue or yellow Pearl on it. I'm not sure.
Right. Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess other little things like I don't know, like why were the credits shown over the end of the episode? Was it like a little longer?
I mean, it went a little bit over 10 minutes. I think it was a little bit over 11 minutes too, maybe. Maybe that's
Hmm,
why the credits went over.
perhaps. It's not a huge deal, but it was just like, oh, we're done? No. More, give me more. Yeah, just a small little detail. The humans that Rose ran into were wearing clothing that were very similar to what was in the zoo. So I think it's cute that like the diamonds or whoever probably saw humans wearing just like some loincloth or whatever, and then just assumed that that was like standard clothing for everyone.
It's probably exactly what happened. They're like, hey, this is their natural clothing. Let's keep it this way forever and never change it.
Yeah, and that's, I don't know, just a cute little touch. But yeah, I just I love this. I love the story here. I loved how they worked so many different elements in. I loved how they're building on something. The reveal matters. It matters not just for Steven, but it makes the other characters upset. And I mean, I think even just being upset that she was lied to for so long is important for Sapphire. And it's not just hopefully it's not just gonna be weird, angsty, like we're not gonna get back together now or anything like that. It's just another fight they're having, and that fight is kind of it's like the backdrop for these other stories. If the rest of the episodes follow this one, and I am so okay with that. I am so much more okay with that as long as Sapphire isn't going to be like looking at her phone longingly for episodes at a time or
Oh, I
something.
hope she doesn't.
Ugh.
She's gonna just take Pearl's phone and pull a Steven. Hey, Pearl, let me borrow your phone for a minute. I need to be like Steven.
Ruby's not texting me on like the gem phone or something. I don't
The
know.
gem
The
phone.
gem phone.
Oh my gosh. That's funny.
Yep. And it also, I mean, it totally makes sense for Sapphire's character, just the whole thing, because she's so sure of what's going to happen. And lately, we know that Garnet is less sure of what's happening. And so this is just like another, like, just huge question mark. If you're so sure of a lot of things that have happened, even if Steven himself is just kind of like a little bit of a wrench in the works, Garnet generally does kind of know what's going on in the world. And so this huge detail that she missed, it's like, I think them being upset at each other is understandable as long as they don't go and mess it up, which they totally could do. But yeah, that's my
Yeah, they
final
could do.
thoughts. Yeah, just a good episode.
Yeah, the other thing that I wanted to mention that was like my favorite, this is just my personal favorite part of the episode,
Mhm.
was when Pearl finally realized that Rose was being selfish. That was like a really good key moment for me, and I think is a key moment in her character development as well. Because like Rose wasn't, I mean, she wasn't the worst person, but at the same time, it's good to that Pearl is finally acknowledging that yes, Rose made mistakes and maybe not all of her ideals and all of her pursuits were pure, and she's not looking at her through rose-colored glasses anymore, or at least this is where she's not starting to look at her like that anymore, which I think is very, very integral to her character development.
It's one of the rare episodes that does a flashback where the wraparound segments and like the cutting back to present day actually adds to the story instead of distracting from it. But yeah, do you have anything else to say about the episode?
I don't think so. I mean, I just thought it was a really good episode just in general. It was really, really good.
All right. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Remember, tomorrow is going to be over on her channel, and there'll be links in the description, all that good stuff. So yeah, let us know what you thought of this episode and what you're excited for in the week. I'd ask, please don't post the big spoiler for the end of the week because I haven't seen it. I might end up having to avoid the comments out of fear, but yeah. All right. Thank you for joining me. And with that, Pie Guy Rules out.
Right, bye, guys.